So could I get a mover? There's Ian. Okay, and a seconder. I'm going to take Tara. All in favor? All right, all opposed. No one's opposed? Okay, so that carries. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes at all? No? Okay. Can I get a mover for that? I'm going to take Jacqueline. A seconder. Jane. All in favor? Okay, all opposed? Awesome, thank you. Now, do we have any disclosure of pecuniary interest? I think we're good. Do we have any delegations, Ian? No,
Vice
okay.
Chair, we have no delegations or briefings on the agenda.
Awesome, thank you. And now to our first item of business, which I believe is being presented by Ruth.
Good afternoon, everybody, through you, Chair. So we, as you know, have a, every Housing and Homelessness Committee, we do have a standing update, which really is covering updates across kind of the housing continuum. I'm happy to talk through a couple of the items or have some of my team members as well kind of come online and share a couple of updates. Really kind of up to the committee what works best.
Happy to hear whatever you have to say.
Well, be careful what you wish for. Yeah, so the standing updates, again, we've started kind of on the emergency housing side of the continuum and have provided the committee with an update on, and also sometimes some additional information on the various programs and initiatives. So you will find on the homelessness services side a little bit of information on the by name list and the coordinated access that we have implemented in this community. The by name list really is almost a real-time kind of understanding of the individuals in our community that are receiving supports through our coordinated access system. These numbers have definitely kind of evolved over the last few years. Also the numbers that you will see on this list are not necessarily all people that are currently like chronically homeless. These are the individuals that are either living in shelters, are living in some other housing solutions, or maybe are couch surfing with friends or family. And of course, there is a number of people that do find themselves actually unhoused and are living in encampments. But it is really a number that, you know, allows us as a sector and multiple partners to work collectively on prioritizing and offering, you know, the best solution for clients where possible. So that's a little bit on the by name list data, and I'm happy to always kind of talk a little bit more about that. I know it's a nuanced conversation. We do see across the province a lot of, you know, again, a lot of cities have embraced this approach, and you will see kind of the data really kind of evolving and becoming more, I would say the data integrity is really improving on this. And I really want to thank our partners that day in, day out, because the numbers are really depending on what our partners put in. And I know that that's a lot of work and commitment as well. We did provide an overview on kind of the various shelter and overnight drop-in services, which again, I think members of the committee know we have really increased, again, as a community, a lot of different services, and we will continue to provide those services. So we have, you know, different solutions for different people. So we just summarized the various services out there. We also gave you some information on the AMHS stabilization program, which has really started to kind of, continue to provide some real great results for clients. And also, as you can see, the daytime services at Salvation Army, which opened up early 2023. And we're really happy to see that they have served over 200 unique individuals at that daytime drop-in. So lots of need, but also lots of services available. Give you an update on the sleeping cabins. They actually have just moved a few days ago back to Center 70. I always get the number right, Heather. I think it's 15 or 17 cabins now that are available. So
17, Ruth, thank you.
17, yes. So that's in place. And then we also gave you, I think this has been out in the news quite a bit. We gave you a bit of an update on the encampments situation with the most recent no trespass orders that were provided, and the current situation of the encampments protocol. So social housing, kind of the next part of the continuum. Again, as you know, we are mandated through the Housing Services Act to provide 2003 RGI units in our community. So those are rents geared to income units. This is a very specific program, and I know there's sometimes some kind of, it's confusing because there's also affordable housing and deeply affordable housing, but this is really the kind of provincial program that was downloaded to us in about 2 decades ago, that has some very specific legislation and rules around it, and really is looking at that rent geared to income. So income, there's 30% of people's income kind of housing. These are, as you know, there is a wait list for this housing program, and we continue to update you on those numbers. Not surprisingly, this is again very similar across the province. We do have approximately 1,200, or it's kind of hovering about 1,200 to 1,300 people on the wait list. About 200 to 250 of those individuals typically are transfers. So those individuals are already housed in social housing, but are looking to go to another social housing solution. We are continuing to roll out the Canada-Ontario housing benefits. We are very pleased to have continued to receive some additional funding for that as well. And we're working closely with our partners to look at, ways of providing clients with that housing benefit, so then clients can work on finding housing and kind of have that gap between their income and the actual cost of housing covered as much as possible. And I know some of our partners even on the call today are working with us really closely on that. So lots of movement there. And then last but not least, certainly the affordable housing capital projects. Between the last committee and this committee, we feel like that's an ever evolving portfolio as well. We provided you with an overview of the various projects under development and construction. And you will see that there are some units coming out of our housing pipeline. We also, you might recall, I think we spoke about this last time, we received rapid housing funding from the federal government in the 3rd round. And we have 3 projects, again, we've provided that in table 6, 3 projects that we are working on to create additional housing solutions, which we're, again, quite pleased about as well. And we were also very last minute in receipt of some additional provincial funding, which allows us to go ahead with the renovations of the west wing of 805 Ridley, so we can add more kind of transitional housing units in that location. We also were able to support as a city Ryandale with some funding, and Ryandale is working really hard to create a third transitional housing solution in the community. So that's bringing a solution of a house for up to 8 individuals in our community, 8 men. And then AMHS, we have also council has provided AMHS with some funding to support them to go out and look for a location for a complex care and healthcare facility, which also again is really kind of providing that gap in the community of housing and health combined. And we also touched on kind of the other affordable housing programs and updates, just as a reminder. Also, the committee is talking with other partners and colleagues. The 3 kind of key affordable housing programs: the residential, secondary residential units, affordable housing grants, the Kingston Frontenac Renovates program, and the home ownership program. They are all open for applications, and we are always excited to spread the word on those, and definitely seeing some uptake on those as well. I think that's it. I can, River, I could go on and on, but I will leave it at that. And happy as a team to welcome any questions.
Yeah, so I guess that right now we'll go into the question period for the members of this council or committee, sorry. Does anybody have any questions? So to Ian.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, the reports referenced, I don't think I got them, although I'm also quite new at this, so it could actually be on my end that I didn't get them.
I think that's a clerk question. Sorry, Ian?
Through you, Vice Chair. So all the reports, if they're referenced in the report, are going to be a hyperlink. And so if you click on the hyperlink in the report, it should take you to any report referenced. Thank you.
Apologies, lost track of my windows. Go ahead, Tara.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, Ruth, you know, I think this is great, the housing projects underway, which is fantastic. Of course, though, we all know it will take quite some time to build some of them, probably a couple of years. And I'm just wondering, is the intention to keep, there's, you know, added shelter beds and stuff that have been added to our community, and will those probably be intended to stay until there's more housing available for people?
Through you, Chair, great question. So it really is finding, I mean, I'm trying not to be too diplomatic here, but I will be just sharing kind of what we're trying to do here, because it really is finding the kind of the right balance between the crisis intervention and kind of the emergency kind of response, and finding some more longer term solutions. So you will see that you're really seeing kind of that slow shift of, yes, we will continue to look at a housing development kind of pipeline, which, you know, will continue. We also have, you know, with our colleagues in the community and real estate, we're kind of working on other projects, and the housing accelerator will really help us to continue that. So that's kind of one longer term, taking time, but hopefully every year moving forward, we will see more affordable housing developments coming online. Then there's the kind of quote unquote like transitional, supportive, like scattered housing approach, which again, we're really seeing as a key solution as well, to often see clients move from potentially like a shelter or even from an encampment into more of a transitional or like, you know, kind of communal living kind of solution. So that's something we're really seeing kind of coming to fruition. Again, with, for instance, the Ryandale example, there's a few other examples that are coming online very soon. So we're seeing kind of that track, which is more ultimately, I think our vision as a community is we would rather have people go receive services in those kind of settings than a shelter. And also, if you're looking at the costs or I guess the return on investment of some of that, that's a much better and also better way for people to live, but also a better, I guess, ultimately investment of our dollars. However, we also know we're not going to be there tomorrow, and we have lots of people in need, lots of people in shelters. So yes, we are working towards continuing the various services with the funding we have and with kind of some of the council directions. Council did kind of pass their budgets and did include a $1.7 million kind of increase for specific homelessness and supportive housing services. So yeah, I guess it's like we're trying to do the emergency piece while we're also working on more of a longer term solution.
So I have my hand up, but I'm going to let Nikki go first because they had their hand up first. So go ahead, Nikki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is, it's a wonderful report and you are working towards helping the issue. Have you looked at anything in the rural areas to help people stay in the rural area? And is that going to be a factor that's going to be taken into consideration with future bills?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Great question. Oh, I'm losing my screen here. Yes, I'm still here. I will start, and I definitely welcome my colleagues as well to jump in. We are working, so I guess to your question, Nikki, there's a couple of different kind of programs and initiatives. We typically see the Kingston Frontenac Renovates program be a program that's really well utilized in the county because quite often it is there's typically a little bit more home ownership, low income home ownership in the county. We also are always, we have ongoing or welcome also more ongoing conversations with the various townships and the county on affordable housing development. We do often have conversations around opportunities, and as our role as a service manager, we do receive sometimes receive provincial federal capital dollars that could be invested in some affordable housing developments, and we do have ongoing conversations. We also, I know our department and often this is not just a housing conversation, it's also a social assistance and a poverty kind of affordability conversation. So we do also have our social assistance team work in the various county offices to kind of have those and including like our housing, obviously our housing wait list. We do work with our social housing providers in the county as well and look at other ways. We always welcome more conversations though. So I think we do recognize that the rural area is different with different challenges, with sometimes more hidden homelessness. The transportation is obviously a very different situation. So definitely always welcome more conversations on that as well.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead with my question, and then I'm going to move over to Kathy if we have the time. Are we still making good time? I think we are. Yeah, okay. So my question has to do with the encampments, actually. This may have been touched on before, but I just wanted to ask a bit about kind of like the communication or consultation process that happened with the encampment specifically this time. More related to like, we hand out notices. How are we working with these people to find the solution that works for them? Because the city has decided that encampments are the way to go.
Thank you, and through you, I can start, and either Heather or Joanne can jump in here as well. So first of all, maybe just to clarify, this is, obviously, council, provided us initially with some time to continue to work with residents in our community in the Bell Park area to work towards solutions, and you will have seen quite a reduction in individuals, and a lot of individuals that have been able to find other solutions. We also we really work in partnership with the providers. Again, our city, my team, the city staff, we have 2 people that are really kind of administering the homelessness programming, but all the programming is delivered through an amazing group of service providers. A key part of those providers, or a key group there, is the street outreach team. There are street outreach staff at home-based housing, at addictions and mental health. There's amazing staff at the integrated care hub that day in, day out, go out and really engage and talk to different clients and try to come up with solutions. It is a very transient situation. People may welcome a solution one day and may not welcome the solution another day. It's a delicate situation. I mean, I'm definitely not, the one to have all the answers there. But I guess what I will say is that there is a real amazing collaboration around the table of all the different service providers, again, through the coordinated access approach, to look at like, how can we best offer solutions? And of course, that is not us telling the clients what they need. It's the clients engaging with the different service providers. But again, this is not today a solution might work, but tomorrow it might not work. Or, and unfortunately, sometimes it is, for instance, a mental health and addiction situation where there is a service that's at that point not available, or at that point the client may not feel comfortable, but then obviously those services also are taken up by other clients. So it is a very delicate process. I will also really want to give a bit of a shout out to my colleagues at licensing and enforcement, our bylaw team. I have our fire team, our other kind of colleagues, because everybody has been approaching this with the greatest compassion and care, knowing that they are, literally going into somebody's home to really look at, how do we balance, like, the direction of, like, we want people to be, nobody wants people in encampments, but we also need to balance everything. I'm sure people have been reviewing other cities and other situations in other cities, and it's a very delicate, I think, fine line. We also have and continue to welcome, we as city staff are always very happy to go out and talk to folks in encampments. We do sometimes recognize that us as city staff going out is a different perception sometimes versus maybe some of those relationships that folks have with staff from other agencies. So that's another thing sometimes that we need to be mindful of, but we always welcome engagements and conversations with anybody in the community.
Thank you. And now I'm going to turn over to Kathy.
Thank you, Chair. Again, Ruth, I think you're going to have to turn your camera back on, because I'm trying to get a picture of the path along the continuum. And so when you say transitional housing, are you meaning second stage and the supports that go along with that? And can you explain a little bit, maybe?
I will leave my camera on. So we talk a lot about the housing continuum. So and it's not always as straightforward as kind of how we project it, but emergency housing we see as the shelter system mainly. So this is in from the cold, the drop-in services, Lily's Place, Dawn House, etc. Then the kind of transitional housing solutions in the community, they are, and again, Joanne or Heather can jump in here if I'm making a mistake, but there are different, their transitional housing typically is a 1 to 4 year kind of housing solution. So people do not stay there for ongoing time, but depending on kind of the structure, there's either, and depending on how the agencies deliver the services, these are longer time kind of, they're kind of in between emergency housing and permanent housing. Supportive housing, I feel like is a definition, or is a term that's obviously been used a lot. We know we need more supportive housing, but really supportive housing is a housing unit or housing solution plus supports. And those supports can be 24/7, or they can be somebody providing services 5 days a week or a few days a week. It can be health related, life skills related, like they can be developmental services. Like it's not a, and I think that will be something that we really want to, as a province and as a country, we'll need to have a clearer kind of definition for, because I think it's now a bit of a catchphrase, because I think sometimes transitional housing also gets kind of thrown under the supportive housing definition. But ultimately, that's kind of also, sometimes they are forever. Sometimes people will be in supportive housing for the rest of their lives, and sometimes it is also a temporary kind of situation. And then you kind of get into affordable housing or social housing solutions. You could even argue, I think, that social housing is also a form of supportive housing because it's a financial supports. I hope that answers the question, but I think what we see is also that some people may go from shelter to housing, back to shelter, or you know, there's it's not a one direction or like a clear line, but I think we're getting a better handle on it, and we're working towards understanding kind of where, well, the needs are everywhere, but how to best kind of what the role of the municipal government is in this, and how we also can best utilize our funding.
Thank you.
If I could just add on to that piece, and I'm not speaking for you, Ruth, at all, but I just wanted to highlight, and I'm sure that all of us here have probably seen it or heard of it, but Dr. Harry Ann Marshall's report on like thriving as a measure has been really wonderful and really informing for being able to understand like what people, and like actual interviews with people who are experiencing homelessness on what they need to be able to thrive, survive, and sustain housing. So I think that looking to that would be really great. And I encourage anybody here to like read it or take a look or do some research on it. Thank you. I don't see any other questions. So
Sorry, through you, Vice Chair. The
Yes.
chair has now arrived. So
Okay.
what I'm going to propose is that the chairship kind of move right as we transition from members of the committee asking questions to opening it up to members of the public, just so that it's a nice, clean transition.
Sure.
And thank you very much for stepping in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, River, for stepping in. I think you have to give me the chair back. You have to actually say it.
Oh, okay. Well, I give you the chair then.
Okay, where are we in the agenda, Ian or River?
So right now we have our first business item, and we were just about to ask the members of the public if they had anything.
Okay, do we have any members of the public here who'd like to ask questions?
I see one, Mr. Chair, Saida Jaffer. I'm just going to allow to talk. Just as a reminder to all members of the public, you have up to 5 minutes, and we are looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Saida.
Thanks so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Saida. I work at the Providence Center for Justice, Peace, and Integrity of Creation. I haven't attended a housing and homelessness advisory meeting in a while, so forgive me if my question is not at the right moment of the meeting. I just had a question about the housing report that Ruth, you presented, which I was wondering if you could say more or tell us a bit more about the AMHS building that funds have been approved. I see that there's reference to how it can expand the need for housing and healthcare to be kind of coexisting in a space. I wonder if you could tell us more about that. And because it referenced, you know, some of the report in that section referenced the integrated care hub, can you comment on what exactly or more will that service that building look like in terms of the services it'll provide? And secondly, will it have any impact on the integrated care hub and its current existing services and model?
Thank you, Saida. I'm assuming, Ruth, you're going to take the lead on this.
Thank you, and to you, yes, and sorry, I think my mute button and video got stuck or something. So thank you for that question. Again, I think your interpretation of yes, it is really an opportunity to support creative solutions to kind of combine healthcare and housing solutions, and AMHS is with their partners is the kind of recipient of some capital contributions that helps them to go out and look for some of those, look for kind of the next kind of or kind of a housing healthcare solution that will combine various pieces. It is still in its infancy. That I mean, I would say that AMHS has not found like a location, or it's still kind of a conversation and an ongoing conversation. What council did is really provide some of the dollars to allow them to actually move ahead on some of that work. I'm also just kind of, because I don't want to miss anything. I don't know if my colleagues Heather or Joanne want to jump in on this. We just want to pause here for a second, if that's okay. Joanne, do you want to jump in?
Sure. The stabilization program is currently being run out of Seven Oaks Motel, and has been providing individuals with a really great opportunity, those who feel ready to not necessarily abstain from use and find housing, but learn how to manage use. And in some instances, it might mean abstinence. But the program has been really, really successful in helping individuals stabilize their lives, connect to the resources and supports within the community, and then find longer-term, permanent, safe housing. And to that end, they've been able to assist, I think it's upwards of 10 individuals move from living on the streets or in the rough to actually finding safe and permanent, stable housing. So what council has done is, as to Ruth's point, allowed AMHS to look at ways to ensure that they maybe move out of that motel space and into a building where they're going to be able to continue that and expand that program to provide support to those individuals who are willing and able to access those services. There's some social recreational programming, to River's point, and Dr. Carrie Ann Marshall's study that helps individuals thrive while they're in the stabilization program. And I think that when they're able to find a location that suits the program's needs, there will be more of that social recreation and programming, more groups, more therapy, all of those different pieces. So it really will look like a very holistic approach to assisting individuals in finding housing.
So I just want to highlight the fact that we are 35 minutes in. We still have two business items that we have to take care of. So if these are Ruth, River, do you have a quick follow-up question? Because we really should carry on with the agenda. I'm just being mindful of everyone's time. Ruth, do you have a follow-up to that? And then we'll go to River quickly, and then I think we'll move on.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. And I will be very quick, kind of further to Joanne's piece, because it did kind of trigger a couple of follow-ups. And sorry, Seda, I just wanted to kind of make sure I touch on everything. So there's kind of two pieces here. Like there is the stabilization program, so AMHS is moving forward on two projects. One is the stabilization piece, which is basically the continuation of the hotel model, which now will actually be a permanent model with a housing component, or the kind of the bricks and mortar component, not in a hotel, but in a location, and healthcare dollars attached to that. So that's really exciting. And this other kind of complex care housing solution is really kind of a continuation of the conversation on knowing that we still have a massive gap in the community and need to continue to work on other solutions. And I know, and we'll touch on this at next committee meeting, but we also are having a broader housing collective impact conversation as a community, and are really looking at, we need multiple kind of almost like hubs or kind of solutions that touch on different areas. So I hope that helps. I know it's not a super clear cut, this is exactly it. We're just allowing this to continue with some community or some city capital contributions.
Okay, River, do you have a quick question?
Yeah, thank you for giving me the time, and I also value Saida's time, and thank you for contributing and asking that question. But I think that there are just a few questions kind of running through my head while I'm listening to this, because this is honestly the first time I've heard of this, and of course it's in very early stages. My first thought was just like, wow, this is like quite ambitious. Some of the concerns that I have, and maybe this isn't actually like cemented yet, but is there going to be the same amount of like harm reduction and like safe using as there was in the integrated care hub, or is it going to be more abstinence based or abstinence adjacent, as you had said previously? And I think the other thing that I was curious about is just like, is there still going to be support for the integrated care hub? Is there still going to be funding for maybe that's not something that can be said right now, but I just, yeah, there's a lot.
Ruth?
Thank you, and happy to comment on kind of what we know. And again, keep in mind that we as a city are just one player in this bigger conversation. So on the funding side, I can speak to that. Actually, the integrated care hub was established initially with provincial or with city kind of COVID dollars that we received through the province. And then again, really with amazing advocacy work of all the partners, AMHS, Trellis, other kind of healthcare partners, community partners, and the work of the CAO's office and the mayor's office, we were actually able to get healthcare dollars for the ICH. So there is an ongoing conversation. It's not ongoing dollars yet, but I know there is an ongoing advocacy and happening with the province on this as well. And again, I also want to clarify, AMHS and Trellis and Providence Care and Home Base and others are all part of ICH. This is it's a community kind of collaborative. So this is a broader conversation around, we know we have a lot of needs, so how do we continue to have solutions in place and help our partners to continue to have these solutions in place? And sorry, on your harm reduction, I would say that's probably a little bit, it's a quite granular question. I mean, I think that's a broader, again, community conversation as well. And I would say granular, but I think it's a big conversation that I think we're having across the board. Like, how do we make sure as a system that we have a good understanding of what that means and what that looks like for each service moving forward?
Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. We have no briefings, and we're on to our first item of business. We have the 2023.
Sorry,
Yes.
Mr. Chair. We're actually at that item of business. We've just.
Oh, we're at the item.
Yes.
Oh, we're further ahead in the agenda than I thought. All right.
Yes. So
well done, team. Glad to see everybody.
that would be that business item done, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we move on to a recommendation. This is the 2023 Housing and Homelessness Advisory Committee Work Plan. So we were further ahead in the agenda than I thought. So we have a recommendation here. Is there anyone who wants to speak on this? Point B? Ruth?
Thank you. Through you, I will be very brief. I know this is an annual kind of, or a document that will come to the committee on an annual basis. And we provided the committee with some of the topics and items that we are planning as staff on bringing forward. By no means does this mean that this is everything, but we just wanted to give you an initial overview of some of the work. in the June meeting, we're hoping to bring forward some of the information on the landlord and tenant boards, data, and some of the work that we are doing on providing some tenants information and some of the eviction renovation pieces. I will be honest, it's a fast moving area because the province has also recently, I think it's positive, announced some changes. So we are bringing something to the committee, so we are all up to date, but it might also come back at a later date with a more final product. We also are quite excited, and I know this gets into some of the technical pieces around the social housing portfolio, but this is a really big part of our financial investments as a city. We are working with the Housing Services Corporation on some frameworks for the end of operating and end of mortgage agreements that are coming up for all of our social housing providers, which really allows us to kind of renegotiate and rethink how we as a municipal government or as a service manager are funding the social housing providers. And so that will be a big part of this committee as well. And we'll come to this committee for advice and feedback before we go to council. And then we obviously will continue to provide standing updates. And I am just going to see Heather, John, Mitch. Did I forget anything? Because I'm looking at a wrong document here.
Seeing none,
Quiet.
I'll open it up to questions. Just raise your hand if you have questions. Put the work plan. None? Okay. This is a recommendation, so I will ask for a mover of the recommendation. Anyone?
I'm waving. I've been waving my.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. So we have Hanny Furt and seconded by
Tara.
Tara.
Yeah.
Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor of this recommendation? That passes. Okay. And we move on to motions. Seeing none, no notice of motion, no other business, no correspondence. We have the date of the next meeting at Thursday, June 22nd at 1 p.m. Seeing no other business, can I get a motion for adjournment? Jackie, seconded by River. And again, I want to thank all of you, you wonderful volunteers, for coming out to this meeting. We're working on a very important file for the city of Kingston. And I know that it's something I've been working on in a variety of different capacities. And I think we're going to do great and important work in the next, for this term of council. So thank you for your time on this this afternoon, and have a great rest of your day. All in favor of adjournment? And we stand adjourned at 1:44 p.m. Thank you very much.
Have a good afternoon, everyone.